Well, some kind of resilience from Kuldeep Yadav and Washington Sundar in what has now become the longest partnership of this otherwise rather sorry India innings. And we look back at how they sank further and further into trouble before and after tea. South Africa are well and truly on top, even though this partnership has delayed things perhaps. 315 is the deficit for India. This is Bajaj Finserv Mutual Fund presents ESPNcricinfo Matchday. And Vernon Philander will join us in a moment. Saba, Karim before that, 3 more wickets and India rocked right after tea. What are your emotions right now watching this Indian performance, which dare I say has shocked quite a lot of us?
Hugely disappointing. And I think the entire the Indian dressing room would be pretty shocked by the way the Indian batters collapsed. We were in a decent position with the opening partnership of 95 odd runs for the loss of 1 wicket, and suddenly you see so many wickets fell in a heap before tea, after tea. I think we talked about this, Raunak, isn't it? That is so important for a batter to understand the pattern of play, to understand what is ticking in Temba Bavum's mind, what kind of bowlers he's operating with. So I think post-tea also it was more important for Indian batters to understand that they could figure out that Marco Jansen will have a spell, so play his spell out and then look to score runs. And also, as we have noticed in the last 1 hour in this session, that once the ball gets older, softer, it gets easy for the batter to play. And I think so to understand, to have that kind of awareness that the Indian batters sorely lack today.
Yeah, Vernon, you could join in as well, and that's something you said a few times on our last show. Lack of match awareness, game awareness, generally by the Indian batters.
Yeah, I suppose you need to identify where the game is at, and very often, you look at the scoreboard and that paints a picture. I think South Africa had to work hard. He lost a couple of soft wickets, but I think just the lack of application, the lack of general test match awareness, understanding that, early on in the spells, the bowler is allowed to have, his tail up. He's also allowed to dominate proceedings for a little while, and very often you almost need to say, you know what, for the next 20 overs or 15 overs, however long, the bowler is going to be up at that intensity, I need to almost say, cool, you know what, you've earned the right, to dominate proceedings. But it's understanding that, you need to get through that patch. Find a way. Very often, you need to get through that patch. So I'm a little bit disappointed in the approach by this Indian batting lineup. And I think we've, become so accustomed to fight fire with fire, so that's the way you play, and that's the way we're going to back it, to the hill. So again, I think, different scenarios cries out for different approaches. And I just feel that this particular test match, South Africa's earned the right, basically, with ball in hand to dominate proceedings. But if you're going to counteract and make a play for it, you need to respect that new ball, number one, get through it. But I think also South Africa's prepared pretty well. I think if you look at the loophole that they found the loophole in the Indian batters not enjoying, that short pitch ball from Marco Jansen. And I think he's using his biggest asset to great effect here, making life real uncomfortable. I think, ever since he's landed, the first couple of short balls, and it will be a talk in the dressing room. It is an uncomfortable ball to face. The short pitch ball, especially when 1 or 2 doesn't get up. 1 or 2 of your batters starting to weigh a couple on the body. So it's also finding a way, to get through that. How to best deal with the short pitch deliveries. But I just think from an overall perspective, highly disappointed in the approach taken by this Indian batting lineup.
Right, thoughts well summed up, and we're going to go more into detail in that, you think, as this test match progresses. But let's spend some time on Marco Jansen, and Vernon, carry on with that. It's supposed to be a slow surface, is what I'm led to believe. So how is Jansen still getting India's batters in that kind of trouble? Excellent use of that short pitch ball.
Yeah, I just feel he's got a wonderful attribute in terms of his height. And because the surface is so difficult, I think those cross-bat shots become so difficult to play because you can't trust, the bounce to be, steady in terms of, the way you're lining it up. I think every now and again, because of the slowness of the surface, you almost get a tennis ball bounce from time to time. And then, of course, one or two start zipping through as well. So it makes it so much more difficult, to get into line number one. But also, I think the key there lies that you have to get into line. First of all, keep your eye on the ball. And then, at the very last minute, you can either get out of trouble or let the ball go. But I just don't think, these guys are getting themselves into good positions, first of all. And also perhaps, a part of the game which they wouldn't have trained that much, facing a guy of, well over 2 meters. So that's also, obviously a key part of, preparing for a test match is to get accustomed, to get used to what you're going to be facing out in the middle. And I just think South Africa has found that loophole in the preparations, number one, perhaps from the Indian perspective. But you can see how uncomfortable they are, facing that short pitch deliveries.
Saba, Jansen.
Oh, he has this rare ability to get the ball above the shoulder when he pitches the hard length. I think unlike any other bowler at the international circuit as of now. And I think that really upset the entire Indian batting lineup. They were unable to pick the length early. That is why if you see those two dismissals, one of Jadeja and the other of Nitish Reddy, both of them were trying to ride the bounce. Now, when you're up against someone like Marco Jansen with a high release point, you get into the position to ride the ball, then it's very difficult to sway away from it. Because even if you're trying to line up to get into the right position, but once you try and cover the bounce and try and ride it, it gets increasingly difficult. And I think that's what happened with both these batters. So Marco Jansen is a much improved bowler because his line has become much better. He now targets the batter instead of bowling it wide down the leg side or outside the off stump. So I think that spell from Marco Jansen was instrumental in putting South Africa in such a strong position. But yes, I think on this kind of a track, to get that bounce from hard length, it made life difficult for the Indian batters.
Yeah, taking nothing away from Marco Jansen and the awkward difficulty he poses to the batters. Whenever Rishabh Pant gets out like that, we ask the question again.
You can't make any sense out of this, isn't it, Raunak? How do you explain this? It's very difficult. And I think maybe first time in his test career, maybe Rishabh Pant may not be able to explain this. This happened immediately after tea. You are the captain of the side. You need to shoulder some responsibility. You have got enough experience of playing at that level. So you lead by example. You lead by absorbing pressure. You lead by taking the blows. And I think all that was sorely missing in Rishabh Pant's approach. I can understand you have to play a natural game, but you can do so by spending some time at the crease, just to get some more understanding of the way the track is behaving. Yeah. Then you can go on and play your shots. No one is stopping you from that.
I mean, we've had these debates before that he's such a unique, and he's a unique. How do I describe it? He's an enigma, Rishabh Pant, and he's a unique piece of cricket that we're witnessing, and we accept the package as a whole. It's very hard for us to say when he takes down Scott Boland or when he takes down Jofra Archer or Jimmy Anderson, and he does it like that when the bowler least expects it. So when it comes off, you think, right, this is only he can get away with it. But it looks awful when the situation is so bad around. Why is today something where you're perhaps more disappointed, if I can say so?
The situation of the game, Raunak, and also being the captain, you need to be far more judicious in your shot selection. And I think playing such high risk shot at that stage of the game pushes your entire team into a corner. And this is what has happened in today's game. Now India, they found themselves in such a difficult position. It'll be very difficult for them to get out of it. It is good that this partnership has offered some kind of solace to the Indian lineup with this half-century partnership. But I think South Africa find themselves in such a strong position because of lack of application, including Rishabh Pant in their batting skill in the first inning.
Yeah, you could see how much that wicket meant to South Africa, Vernon. They've got wickets easily today, or they've had that often enough. But the celebration there tells you what they make of perhaps the two most important wickets, perhaps Jaiswal in the morning and Pant in the afternoon. Give me your immediate thoughts on when you saw Pant get out the way he did.
Yeah, I think, of course, South Africa have highlighted, the two potential players that can take this game away from them or that can get to their score and bet India into a position of advantage. But those are the two dangerous players for me. I mean, from the outset, I think I was quite happy with the approach that we saw from Jaiswal this morning. It was a lot more measured. I think also he's allowed himself to get in on its surface. I think the disappointing part about Pant's dismissal will be the fact that he's one of the leaders in that group, and the kind of message that you're sending back to some of the younger players. I think that's what's key for me. And the one point that I'd like to highlight is that we look at scenarios, and if India had to be 300 for 3, and he comes out playing that kind of shot or playing that kind of game, by all means, because he's looking to get on with it. But you're finding yourself with your team in such a deep disarray and so far behind the 8 ball. That you ask yourself, sometimes you need to guts it out a little bit as well. And to me, that's certainly, a bit of a soft option. Yes, and we all know we'd like to give him, that mantle to play that way because he is an entertaining player. But again, Test match cricket asks of you to get yourself in first of all before you can start dominating bowling attacks. So I think for me, it's more about the message, that gets sent back to the dressing room. Having watched that little piece of play, and especially also the time. It's just after, straight after tea. You've got the fresh set of bowlers, back at it again. So, yeah, I think just the message for me is important.
Just to add to that, Raunak, I think not that Rishabh Pant is not capable of defending good deliveries. He has shown that in the past, and he has been able to absorb the pressure even in overseas conditions. And this was, one such situation where that kind of application was required from the captain. So I think Rishabh Pant would also be hugely disappointed.
Does this give us any insight into just perhaps how that dressing room is thinking? Does it strike you as a dressing room of confusion, of perhaps some, even with the batting order, with Jurel's wicket before tea, Pant after? Is there some trouble brewing there from what you can gauge?
One can only speculate like that, Raunak, but I discussed this yesterday and I mentioned this, that as a test batter, you also need to have an individual game plan, and you need to leave out all the so-called outside noise when you step onto the ground. Even if there is, in the end you play for pride. In the end you play for your own career, and I think there are so many young batters who are in a position to find a place in the 11, and if they do well, they can jolly well go on and cement their place in the side. So there was, and the wicket is behaving quite well, and you prepare for something like this. You're up against a top quality bowling attack, but then it is up to the individual how you prepare and how much you focus, how much you're willing to absorb the pressure, and then get scoring opportunities on which you can score freely.
Yeah, I think it's a deeper discussion to have on whether they're playing like a team that is in trouble, in spite of the same personnel doing well in England, exceeding expectations.
Yes.
And suddenly there's just either there's a consistency missing or there's a panic as a result of one test match or the next. Do you sense it's not all hunky-dory?
You're absolutely right, Raunak. I think I find that for a team to grow and for a team to build, you need a lot of space to be given to the respective individuals whom you have chosen in the side. And for that to happen, you need to have more trust in your batters. This is a young batting lineup. That is fine. All the teams at the international level go through this kind of transition. And I think the fact remains that India did so well in England, and that shows that India does have the promise to make this transition work quite smooth. But the way we capitulated at the Eden Gardens, and even now in the first innings, that goes to show that there is some kind of insecurity that may have crept in the Indian dressing room. So it is up to the captain and to the team management to remove all such doubts and try and back the individual whom you have taken in the 11.
Yeah, Vernon, if you want to add something, please feel free, because this is the kind of thing I'm sure when you came to India for a long time, this is what India used to do to the opposition. We would pile on the runs, and suddenly there was a gulf between the two sides. When the turning or the rank turners came in, the discussion became more about the pitches. But in a way, a good thing that the surface here is not really at the center of attention. It's the complete gulf between the two teams and the other way around.
Yeah, I think you guys are making such a good point there. I think the biggest word that comes to mind for me is expectation. I think the home team, for the first time, really finding themselves, up against it, behind the 8 ball at the moment. And you ask yourself, how do I go about this? And I think if I look at this approach from India, they are playing the scoreboard rather than playing, the actual surface at hand. I think if you break it down, you still need to get yourself in, you still need to form partnerships. But I think that the biggest talking point right now would be, geez, I mean, we're up against it. We're so far behind the 8 ball. We want to try and get ourselves into a position of advantage. But you don't do so by, going out there and trying to smash the first 2 balls for maximums. I think you need to get yourself in. And very often, we draw on reference points. How often a guy has done it before. Can you get yourself into that kind of mind frame again of getting yourself in? And I just think, we've become so accustomed to, with some of the shorter formats that, the only option available would be to try and smash yourself out of trouble. So I don't think Test match cricket is all about that. I think Test match cricket is about application at the end of the day. But again, I just feel that there's that lack of, trusting your own ability, trusting the process to get yourself over that advantage line. So, again, perhaps for me, looking at this approach and application shown by the Indian team, it's almost, we're going to try and bully our way, out of trouble. But also, given the situation they find themselves in, perhaps looking too far ahead. Test match cricket is still about playing each session or each half session at a time, reassess where you're at, and then you take it forward. So, I think they're perhaps thinking a little bit outcome-based instead of, focusing on their processes.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's something you built up yesterday as well. The situation of the series, 2-test series, you're 1-0 down. The only way you salvage it is by getting a result. Then you start thinking you've got to get 500 quickly because of the time South Africa had taken. Maybe that plays into how the batters have approached this. Not like, let's first bat 150, 180 overs. Maybe we'll not have time for a result then. And you're losing the series anyway. It seems like there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
That's manifesting this way. Well, let's get deeper into the other aspects from the South African point of view. How good was that session? On the tactics, Marco Jansen employed Vernon, and my God, the catching.
Highly impressed. I think it's something that South Africa pride themselves on the field. How was it catch up Aiden Markram at, second slip or gully?
Yeah, he started at second slip and finished at wide gully. I think that's how it went. Yeah.
Just finish at point, you have to get it right. I think it's something that South Africans have always pride themselves on over the years, is obviously, to spark that a little bit of interest or spark that little bit of change in the field. And very often that is what gets bowling attacks going, that little half chance that you take, a little run-out opportunity. I think I was highly impressed with, Marco Jansen and him, latching onto that opportunity of using his height to great effect. I think, obviously every now and again, playing the subcontinent as a bowler, you can almost fall into the lull of, it's a flat surface, let me just try and get it up there. But you look at his spells, he's in that 140-kilometer mark, every single spell he's bowling. So he's really making life really difficult, for the Indian batting lineup. And of course, once, one or two, just start to keep a little bit low. I think that's where, the big concern for batting lineup starts forming. I think, when it flies over your head, you can get underneath it. It's quite comfortable. But I think we've seen it every now and again. He's just ventured that half a meter fuller. But because of his height and his release points, he gets that steep bounce where you almost can't get out of the way. So highly impressed with, the way he's operated. But I think also, the bowlers around him, Kessoff, Harmer, the control that they've had. They've not let India off the hook, for one bit. And, fortunately, having played a lot of Test match cricket, I understand, controlling the run rate in Test match cricket still plays a massive part. And, when you suffocate teams like that, they're almost left with no option but to take high-risk opportunities, and it certainly paid dividends for South Africa.
Yeah, it looks like tactically, even your point of the pace with the spinners bowled on our last show, Saba, tactically, South Africa have outsmarted India, is it fair to say?
Yeah, completely. With their bowling resources, with their craft, with their guile, I think overall South Africa have dominated this test match. And a word on fielding, I think you become an excellent fielding side when you sense as a fielder that there is an opportunity coming. So then you are aware and you are ready for a catch. And I think that's what happened in the case of Aiden Markram, even Brian Rickleton. He could figure out the Sai Sudarshan and maybe trying to get into a position to play shots on square of the wicket. So you find as a fielder to be in great positions when you are sensing that there is an opportunity coming your way.
Well, let's go to the partnership of Washington Sundar and Kuldeep Yadav. What does that tell us?
Oh, great defensive skills, isn't it? And we talked about this off air, Raunak. I was quite impressed with Kuldeep Yadav. He was defending very well, playing it late. This is expected from Washi Sundar. He has done that before. He uses his height to good effect, gets closer to the pitch of the ball, is able to smother the spin. But a revelation was the way Kuldeep Yadav gave him company. And not only to spinners, but also I think the couple of overs he faced of Marco Jansen, right behind the ball, picked the length very well. Against spinners, excellent footwork from Kuldeep Yadav.
And he's actually dominated this partnership in terms of balls faced.
Yes.
So Washis has no problem giving him a single of the last ball or keeping him on strike for a large part of the over. But Washington Sundars looked comfortable, as he did in both innings, to his credit, even at the Eden Gardens. Yes, Sai Sudarshan's back, but Washi's back to 8. I mean, there was a case perhaps to say Washi could bat 4 in the absence of Gill. He could bat ahead of at least Nitish Kumar Reddy, who's just coming back into the team.
So this is what confusion is all about, Raunak. What you alluded to, that as a batting unit in Test match, especially, you need to have a fixed batting order so that a player is able to understand his game better, is able to prepare better. But I think in this case, in one game, you're batting at number 3, and he showed some great technique even at Eden Gardens on a difficult surface, and we saw that happen even today. So there is a case of pushing Vashi Sundar up the order, maybe above Nitish Reddy, if not higher up the order. But then you had Rishabh Pant before him, so that is understandable. But now Vashi Sundar, I sense that he's thinking like a batter now. He's thinking like a top order batter, and I think once you do that, because then you get into a mindset of playing like a batter. And I think that's what Vashi Sundar has done so far. So yeah, I think this kind of confusion needs to be removed from the Indian dressing room as soon as possible for this young Indian batting order to grow.
Yeah, well, it might come at a great cost if India, in all likelihood now, are to lose this Test match, and that will take something special if it's to not happen. State of the game, summation from you, Vernon. What are South Africa thinking here? The deficit is 3-1-5. Let's assume they will get another 3 wickets at some point in this last session. Are we entertaining thoughts of a follow-on? Are South Africa looking to bat again and try and just put this game beyond India and try and let this pitch wear down further?
I think where the game is at the moment, I don't think we're going to see a follow-on. You can put it out of your mind. I think South Africa is going to try and wrap it up as quickly as they can, and then they're going to bat time. I think it's up to India to make the play here. Look, I mean they've earned the right to do it, first of all, but I think they'll still be going for a result. Make no mistakes of that. But yes. I think they'll probably try and get these last 3 wickets as quickly as possible. Try and bat another 3 sessions, get that lead to somewhere close to 400 plus, and then it's all up to India to make the play. But I think they've earned the right to do it, number one. So yeah, I think they definitely dominating this Test match so far.
Yeah, would you agree with that? The follow-on now with the state of the game is highly
ruled
unlikely?
Out completely, Raunak. I feel that South Africa would love to get to a position where they're able to use two new balls in the 4th inning. So maybe give say 4.5 to 5 sessions for India to bat in the 4th innings, and I think that will be extremely difficult to ask for India to survive the Test match. So South Africa would love to get into that kind of a position. So at this stage, they are on top, and they would like to wrap it up as soon as possible, get a handsome lead, and then build on it as much as possible. Just keep piling up the runs, and then it will be up to them, the Bavuma and the South African side, to decide on when to declare. But as I said, I think because the harder ball is posing more difficulties to the batter, so I think South Africa would love to have that kind of a cushion when they try and bowl India out in the 4th innings.
All right, very good. Saba, Karim, thank you very much. Vernon, Philander, you as well. How do we expect this last session to go? Vernon, you didn't get your bonus wicket in that one. Kuldeep defied you. So how many are we expecting? Are we expecting these last 3 wickets to happen quickly? Because things don't seem to be happening quickly with the evidence of the last hour before this break.
Yeah, I think I was mightily impressed with the approach shown by Kuldeep as well as Washington. I think it just goes to show that there's absolutely no demons in the surface. If you want to apply yourself, there is runs to be collected. But I do feel we're perhaps going to see a little burst from Marco Jansen again. He might open, the gate on the one end. And then I do feel we're going to bowl out India in the session and hopefully be 50-60 for none come the real lunchtime.
Right. Well, I can just point out it's 67 overs so far, so there will be a new ball or a second new ball available in 13 should this resilience last any longer. But from India's point of view, there's not much really to say this sorry situation other than Vashi and Kuldeep just do what you're doing.
Yeah, just play a natural game, just play like this, continue to bat, try and bring down the
deficit, yes.
The deficit as of now. This partnership has been quite heartwarming for India, and I think India would be looking to build on this. But yes, I think South Africa, because they have this luxury of getting in the second new ball, then I see South Africa getting these 3 wickets and maybe batting for about half an hour, 45 minutes, getting to about 30 to 40 for the loss of at least 1 wicket.
All right, well, very much South Africa's test. You normally say when you give a team 5 sessions in a row, it's very hard to lose from there. And counting the 3 on day 2 and 2 so far on day 3, it's South Africa's test match from here, unless something extraordinary happens. These days you never rule that out. That Ashes test and whatnot. Yes. Every few months something extraordinary happens these days in Test cricket. But anyway, Vernon's like, you guys are just dreaming. Get out of the show, it's done. Vernon, thank you very much. Let's chat again at the end of the day's play. Saba, Karim, you as well, sir. Do join us at the end of day 3 to see if South Africa truly have a foot on this game, and India can just wait and see what happens. As of now, it's completely a test match in going in the favour of Temba Bavuma. End of day analysis on Bajaj Finserv Mutual Funds presents ESPNcricinfo Matchday. Join us then.